Hello again, Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, back with one of the very first models from Malifaux, Killjoy, though this is his second edition sculpt, starting off with Rosy skin, 09068. So part of the Outcasts, Killjoy is an undead Neverborn, likely a Nephilim, who was cursed with undeath for a crime he doesn't remember, and pretty much wanders the world of Malifaux, trying to slate a never-ending bloodlust and thirst and hunger for flesh, the living. And with his array of equipment, clearly, I gotta be careful about that. Clearly, it seems to me anyway, to draw inspiration from the abominations from the Warcraft series of games, with the hook and the cleaver. Somebody doing some malarkey. So he's got no genitals, as we're assuming he's a he most likely, but in any cases, a bloated corpse. He can be reasoned with to a certain extent and can be talked into providing direct service, usually in exchange for the promise of carnage and slaughter, but is highly likely to turn on his allies or his temporary allies, when there is no other target left, or if his bloodlust isn't satisfied in a timely and rapid fashion. Again, I don't have much 3rd edition stuff, just the Dead Man's Hand pack, which Killjoy is not part of. But in both 1st and 2nd edition, he had a rule where he could be summoned into play the first time a friendly model from his crew was killed. With the ability being called, I think, Blood Price in 2nd edition. Using a larger brush here, since there's such a wide surface area. Alright, that's a nice solid coverage. So I'm going to let that dry before I move on, but I should be able to hit quite a few of the base coats simultaneously. Is this working? Okay. Glitch there. Next up, Chaotic Red. This is an Army Painter Warpaint. So I'm not sure what I want to do with his eyes. Those hooks are, I can't tell if those hooks are in them or near them, but I'll have it figured out by the end of this. What I'm going to do is get this on the inside of his mouth. And he also, like the stitch together, has exposed viscera. Playing around with the shading on that to show desiccation. Doing something similar to what I did with the Necropunks a few videos ago. And then Shield Brown 09161. Getting the handle on his big old cleaver. And that just went into the hole I was trying to avoid. So I just blew that paint out with just my lungs. And then 09062 leather white. Now the concept art shows his wrappings around his forearms and legs in a darker color, but that would kind of, if I'm planning to do with that chain weapon, would kind of interfere with that. So we'll do a conventional kind of bandaging here. And I'll be picking out the chain later after this dries. So looking at least one more session for base coats. That brings to mind the stature of a boxer or an MMA fighter. Okay. Yeah, I think one more session of base coats. So back in a bit. Alright, knocking out the last base coats. Woodstain Brown 09160. We've got Killjoy in a combination of stonework and mud. As the kind of character that can appear anytime, anywhere, as opposed to restrained to a specific environment like the Bayou or the Badlands. And to be fair, none of the characters in Malifaux really are restrained to just one locality. They just end up wherever they want to, for the most part. Tarnished Steel 09206. And this I'm only putting on the blades. Now, Killjoy is fairly easy to paint in that he's got very few undercuts to worry about. A lot of Malifaux models have some pretty severe undercuts. Okay, this is where it's going to get a little tricky, so I'm going to grip that chain like this. This is going to make it a little tougher for you to see, but this is a necessity based on the fragility of it. And I said this before, but my major complaint about Malifaux models in general is that they do sometimes have an insane amount of fragility. Stormy Gray 09088, because while this chain certainly looks impressive, it's brittle. A softer plastic might have been better suited to it. But again, just kind of a technical complaint I hope Weird learns from. These chains going from the mouth and eyes were a bit of a pain to figure out. Weird does post assembly instructions, which many companies, it's still a fairly new thing. Games Workshop does it. Privateer Press is starting to do it on their more complicated kits. Ninja Division doesn't have any. And gotta go online for Weird. But overall, the days of trying to figure these kits out without instructions are fading away as the sculpts get more complex and detailed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, again, these models are very impressive, very nice showpieces. Game's fun overall, but this fragility is, again, an issue I feel Weird needs to reevaluate, especially as they go into new sculpts for 3rd edition. Not every model is getting a brand new sculpt from 3rd edition, from what I understand and have read, but something worth excuse me, worth looking into. Uniform Gray, this is a Army Painter Warpaint in the last base coat. Blob should be enough. I'm finding that the war paints need generally very little water to thin out into a base coat. Okay, and I get the base coats wrapped up. Once this dries completely, I can start to shade. Alright, time to shade. Woodstain Brown 09160. So for shading, you're going to dilute your paint with generally 1 part water to 1 part paint. Darker colors, you might want 2 to 3 parts water. This is thinning it into what's called a wash. And apply over the base coats. Try to be careful not to nick this again on this one. But and then Pure Black 09037. This one is almost out, but I do have to back up. And this is a color where I will use 2 to 3 parts water per 1 part paint. Now doing this properly, the paint will go into the most recessed areas and darken them, which will work with the highlight put on top with a dry brushing technique in the last step to make those bright areas pop. in deep red, or no, red brick 09001. Need to avoid, well, unless you want your paint to blend together, which is an option. You can get some interesting effects when doing that. You want to avoid painting adjacent areas at one time. So in this case, I'm just going to have to wait for this to dry before moving on. Okay. Well, the first round is still drying, but it's dry enough I can move on. Blackened Steel 09205. Using a very delicate touch on the shading on that hook. And I'm trying to avoid the hole in the cleaver. And if I do get paint in there, I'll have to just blow it out. Because in a space like that, the paint could leave a film. I'm going to blot this out a bit because this could also leave a blob of paint near the end on this surface. Then Linen White 09061. I think I might want to do a second shade on that, but let's just do this the most basic level first and then make up my mind later. And note that I'm using the entire edge of the brush, not just the tip. And here I'm trying to avoid the chain I just finished. But when shading, you want in base coating, you want to go from the lowest area of the model, generally the skin, to highest. Shading, you want to go high to low, highlighting low to high. Okay. Now once that's dry, I can get the skin followed by the base. Got on the toes a bit, I'll just try to soak that up with a brush with no water or paint in it. Alright. Okay, so I am going to do a secondary layer of shading on the bindings. Driftwood Brown, I think, 09162. Just enough to make them look a little dirty. So I think I'm going to thin this out a little more than usual, maybe 2 parts water to 1 part paint. It's still kind of wet on these, and that's fine. The only clean part I want on this model, I think, is going to be the weaponry. I'm not going to worry about a completely solid coat on this. Look a little more realistic if I just do kind of a patchwork of staining here. That's pretty good. A little more on the form up here. Yeah. Second to last shade, Ghoul Skin 09148. Give Killjoy a nice deathly pallor. I think I'll thin this out a little more than usual. Huh. Keeping the brush nice and wet during this. Okay. One more there on that bicep. That's pretty good. Now, once that dries, I've just got one more shade on both colors of the base, and we can move on to highlight and detail. Last shade, Pure Black 09037. Well, no, make that second to last, but I can do the simultaneously. Okay, that came out hard. Going over the Woodstain brown from earlier. Give the impression of mud or dirt. And Stormy Gray 09088. Being careful not to hit the toes. Alright, and then the eyes. Blood Red 09003. doing this with essentially the same amount of water I'd use for a base coat. I'm just filling those in completely. And once all this dries up, I can start to highlight. Alright, time to highlight and wrap this up. So I'll start with the matte white. Yeah. Using a dry brushing technique. Ragged feathered brush, no water. Rub most of the paint out on a paper towel. Lightly dust the area to be affected, in this case the teeth. I'll go ahead and do another one. Rosy highlight 09069. Yeah, we'll do this one. I want it to look like there's nothing left in your brush. And slightly dusting the area to be affected. Refreshing the paint as necessary. Giving this monstrosity a deliberately disturbing countenance. Ghost White 09063. And working from the lowest area of the model to the highest. And this still leaves the bandages looking dirty. Exactly what I was going for with them. Just conked my camera. Not worrying too much about the wrappings on this arm. Blood Red 09003. Frame rate's good so far. Driftwood Brown 09162. Uniform gray. Still good on that frame rate. but I'm hearing my computer making funny noises, so I need to be mindful. Then that wiggling is making me very, very nervous. But I'm done. Thanks with that one. And then where am I at? True Silver, 09207. Concentrating on the most readily visible surfaces, and I'm gonna hold on to the hook while I dust it. There. Misty Gray, 09090. And Shield Brown, 09161. Not that one. It should be alright. And final step, switching over to a flathead brush. Uh-oh. And Pure Black, 09037. Just really running thin. Just lining the base. Avoiding hitting any of the sculpting I've done. And all I need to do now is varnish him, but that wraps up Killjoy. Continuing on with another crew box set. Until then, I am Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, signing out.